Hey everybody, welcome to Teal Tinted Glasses. Going to do a little Barracuda breakdown tonight. Obviously, big trade happened. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to try and do it and at a reasonable time because it's really, really late.
Hey everybody, welcome to
I have myself in my other ear, and that's not good. Okay, that's fixed. With me tonight is Mr. Hockey Jerk. Mr. Hockey Jerk, how you doing?
Oh man, we made it. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm fantastic. It's good to be here, even if it is 12:30 in the morning. It's kind of late. It's been a while since I've actually had to do a show like this because you just So, but yeah, no, it's good. I'm glad to be on, especially not knowing because obviously for those that don't know, I have rejoined the gainfully employed. So we'll see how that affects things going forward, but for now, let's just be positive, and I'm here. So and so is Hockey Jerk, and the Barracuda won probably their most dominant game I've seen them play this year. Like if you wanted the team to look like the team that was last year, this was the game to watch. Barracuda beat the Texas Stars, not the Dallas Stars, although they might be able to beat the Dallas Stars at this point. I'm just saying.
They probably could.
Depends who's in net.
This is true.
Thank you. Yes, I like my new glasses too. I find they glare less, so I can wear them, so I can actually read and not squint. Because I didn't like the other ones because they glared. I felt they glared a lot, and it distracted me when I looked at my pretty face. But yeah, so the Barracuda beat the Texas Stars by a score of 6-1. Kevin Labanc playing his first game as a member of the Barracuda this year after being sent down. I think we should probably start there. What are your thoughts on Kevin Labanc being set back to the Barracuda after a strong start to the NHL season?
I think it was a mistake because he had the strong start, and I just don't like it because, the first 5 games of the season, he's the Sharks' best player.
Mm-hmm.
And then now here he comes, and he's just as good as everybody else, and all of a sudden that's not good enough. But meanwhile, Timo Meier can be a literal.
Oh no, Jerk's dying. Mr. Jerk, you're dead. Are you there? Kevin Lacey is on assignment. Oh, here he comes. Maybe. All right. Well, it's funny because I kind of want Jerk to finish his thing there because I know I tweeted out today that like I went last show that we had Thursday, and I had a little preachy speechy about Timo Meier, and so I'm kind of curious too because I still personally stand by my little Timo Meier rant. And then I don't know, like it just and I'm gonna let Jerk hopefully finish.
What an awful time for my computer to die.
That's okay. I was just because you started on Timo Meier, and I was just saying that before you finished that I stand by my Timo Meier defense from last show.
Oh, absolutely. I still think he deserves to be in the NHL, but I just don't understand how he can be, a passenger through 12, 13, 14, how many games it's been, and, continue to get ice time. I mean, I know he was scratched, which I don't recall which game it was, but I know he was scratched. But, Timo Meier, I think, would benefit from going back to the Barracuda and, dominating. I mean, this is literally the Sharks' top prospect, and he's playing in a fourth-line role. Like, he's destined for failure, and we've seen it in the past, so it's not like we should be surprised, but it's still frustrating nonetheless.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, his shot selection is just so terrible still, though, and that's the problem that I have with him. Like, to me, like the whole lineup situation is really, really silly. Like, I don't like that Kevin Labanc gets sent back, but I also don't like the fact that we're talking about how you need scoring in the top 6, and if it's not Kevin Labanc, then he needs to go back down, which is stuff that I read today. And yet Jonas Donskoy, who's been maybe the best Shark the last couple of maybe 3 games, is still playing in the bottom 6. For what? For Melker Karlsson to skate on the second line? Give me a break.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. I think Donskoy should be higher in the lineup, but at the same time, I think if you take Donskoy away from Tierney and Bodker, I think they'll both suffer. Donskoy's really good possession wise, and I think if anybody's going to be able to help create chances for Bodker and Tierney, it's going to be Donskoy.
Yeah, I don't know. It just the lineup decisions just continue to frustrate me with Peter DeBoer. Um, I get what you're saying with that, and I feel like it's hard because I agree with you somewhat on that. Like I think we've seen Tierney do a little bit better with obviously better line mates.
Right.
Um, but at the same time, like I don't get it, man. I don't get how, if you have to send somebody down. I mean, I guess you want him to keep playing. The positive here is that he's not sitting in the press box. He's actually getting his reps in still with Kevin LeBanc obviously going back down.
Right.
That is a positive. But I just like for what? So he's going back down so they can what? They can pull Yannick Hansen back into the lineup.
Ugh, I really hope not. If there's anybody who's been I mean, we talk about Timo Meyer being a passenger, but you want to talk about passengers, Yannick Hansen is the poster boy for being a passenger.
Yeah. Rob asking if Marcus Sorensen gets called up Wednesday. There's no room for Marcus Sorensen to come up.
Well, not only that, but yes, he had a hat trick tonight, and that's all in great. But in the 9 games before tonight, he had 1 goal.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't get me wrong. Super happy about that game. That's actually a good segue to get into the game tonight. Marcus Sorensen had a hat trick, looked really, really good. Kevin LeBanc being down there, I think really helped the Barracuda though. Zach tweeted the start earlier. The Stars seemed really 5-on-5, the Stars were kind of showing LeBanc a lot of respect. They weren't really, they didn't want to get burned by him, so they weren't playing him as hard as they may have, played maybe like a Sandberg or a True. They kind of gave him a lot of ice to, a lot of ice to move around on. So I think that was a big, nice plus for the Barracuda. But to say that Kevin LeBanc goes back to the Barracuda and that was the difference maker, it wasn't tonight. I don't get me wrong, LeBanc I thought had a great game, but a lot of guys, I thought a lot of guys had a really great game tonight. Marcus Sorensen obviously being front and center, big game for him, especially after his kind of brutal start that he's had. And the thing that I don't know, what was your thoughts before I just kind of go all over the place here?
I thought the team as a whole looked good. They they were showing flashes of the team that we saw last year. A couple guys stood out to me. Obviously, Adam Haluka continues his meteoric rise to the top. He had at least one breakaway in the second period, and then he hit the post on a 2-on-1 in the third period. And so, he's getting in and he's getting his chances. And, as it stands right now, he's got 9 points in 10 games, which is very impressive when you consider how streaky of a player he was last season. Obviously, the line of it was Sandberg, True, and Balkers. I thought that line as a whole was really good at controlling the play, despite the fact that they were the, quote, third line. And I think LeBanc going to this team, as much as I think he deserves to be on the Sharks, I think he makes this team so much better and allows them to kind of have multiple lines who can all take over the play, on their own. And the one kind of standout that I wasn't really super, happy about was Radim Šimek. He continues to underwhelm in my eyes. We saw him in the prospect scrimmage in July, and he was on the top pair for his team, and his slap shot from the point was widely talked about. And I think I've been to 4 Barracuda games this year, or maybe 3, and in all of them, I've not seen him wind up at the point once. And for a guy who's supposed to be making his money by slapping it from the point, he's not really doing it a whole lot. And then obviously Troy Grosnick being Troy Grosnick, nothing new there.
He was great.
He was dialed in from the start. And I mean, yeah, the Barracuda put up 6 goals, but it very easily could have gone the other way, especially with how, how shoddy the Barracuda's defense has been this season.
Yeah, that's the one thing too. And I thought the other thing that was really good about this game, and I think, it kind of goes back to what Zach was saying about Kevin Labanc kind of getting a little too much respect out there, was how good the transition game was tonight. Because my big criticism of the Barracuda the last couple of games has been their transition game, getting from their end to the other end. And I thought that, the forwards, I think, are really committed to helping that transition game, which I don't think was happening so much before. But it looked good. And I thought, another guy who I thought had quietly had a good game was Jeremy Waugh. I thought Jeremy Waugh, he's a guy that I haven't really noticed. And I think for a defenseman like Jeremy Waugh, the style he plays, sometimes not being noticed is probably the best compliment you can give him. But he, I thought he made some noticeably good plays tonight. So, kudos to him. And then Fitzgerald finally gets on the board. Fitzgerald's been a guy who's been trying to fill in for that, point shot that the Barracuda so desperately miss right now. And he's been just, hammering them away, trying to get the puck, finding its way through traffic. And tonight, finally got rewarded for his work.
Yeah. And you mentioned Jeremy Waugh, and, like you said, how not being noticed is a good thing for a player of his style. And, I'm with you there 100%. I didn't notice Jeremy Waugh at all, which obviously is a good thing. Save for, there was one instance in the third period where he was skating very slow, like Joe Pavelski level slow, where it looked like his skates were just filled with cement. And, for a defenseman who, is supposed to be the guy who breaks out the puck and move the puck up the ice, that's not a very encouraging sign. But other than that, I mean, that's one very minor detail in an otherwise good game. I think if he just keeps at it, I think he'll get there eventually.
Right. I think it's hard because I feel like, and obviously look at you have to do this, right? You have to look at draft pedigree, and, and players have, you should be able to look at guys and say, okay, look at this guy was taken here. He should live up to X potential.
Right.
But I think with someone like Jeremy Waugh, who is coming back from, let's be honest, some pretty horrific injuries. The fact that he's skating in the AHL at all at this point is promising in my humble opinion. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially like you said, last year he, correct me if I'm wrong, did he tear a ligament in his leg, or did he just do really bad damage to his knee?
I don't remember his exact. He's basically had his, I feel like he's had his, from the ankle to his knee. I think they're robot parts at this point. He might have robotic legs.
It's very possible. I remember as early as him being drafted, right after we drafted him, it's like, oh, Jeremy Waugh got cut from the team, but he's still in San Jose being looked at by doctors, and it's like, oh, great, Yeah. And then here comes last year, first month of the season, and they rule him out all year.
Yep. Yeah, and just could never get back into the lineup. They tried to get him back in for the playoffs and just couldn't get him to go. I thought it was a really good game tonight. There was a lot of positives, especially, like I said, a lot of my criticisms I didn't have tonight. I thought the transition game was as solid as it's been all year. The forward lines, as much as, again, we don't maybe like Labanc being down there, and I don't really want Timo down there anywhere near the Barracuda at this point either, because A, I feel like it's just going to reinforce his crappy shot selection, and B, he just turns into Diet Lucic.
It's very good point, but I just
but I don't know what else you do. What do you do? Do you risk losing Gaudreau to waivers instead of his 1-in-6 game pace that he's on right now?
I just think I don't think Timo Meier is getting a fair chance to show what he has. I think I think Timo Meier should be on that line with Hertl and Couture. No knock on Melker Karlsson. I like Melker Karlsson, but he's not a second line player. I think Karlsson should be on that third line or the fourth line. And I agree. Whether I've said it on air or off air, I can't really remember, but I'm waiting for DeBoer to put Carpenter and Gaudreau together and see if they can rekindle any of that Barracuda magic they've had the last 2 years, because especially last year around in the middle of the season, it was Goodrow, Carpenter, and John McCarthy who were, running the ship there for a
Mhm.
good chunk of the season. And I want to see them. And as much as we like to give him a hard time, I think Jannik Hansen would be a good third piece on that line. So
Yeah, because to me, if I could make one change, like I would put Donskoy with Couture and Hurdle,
mhm.
because I think that Couture, because Donskoy in his rookie, I mean that's pretty much where he stayed. It was him, Couture, Marlowe that whole year.
Right.
And I don't know why Peter DeBoer doesn't want to go back to that, or just, like, again, it goes back to like these weird double standards that DeBoer seems to have, where some guys it's like, they don't score and then they're on the fourth line, and then other guys they just get first power play minutes. So I don't know.
Well, and we're kind of seeing that with Melker Karlsson. And again, I like Melker Karlsson, but Peter DeBoer's first season, DeBoer made it very apparent that Melker Karlsson was one of his favorite players. And
Right.
now we're seeing that, where Karlsson, I believe, has one goal on the season, and he's, for all intents and purposes, has found a home on Couture's wing. And it's like, if you're only going to go score, 10 to 15 goals a year, do it on the fourth line.
Or even the third line. Here's the thing with like, and here's why I like Melker though, and I like Melker, with those, as the third guy for either of those scoring units, is because Melker just, him and Donskoy are very similar players in the sense that they're both, they both have engines that don't stop, and they're both, they're not they don't make the glamorous plays, but they are the guys that are going to do all the hard work, that are going to go into the corner, win the battle, get the puck, and then pass it. And then that's when the highlight starts, after the pass is made. Like
Exactly.
they're very similar in that respect. So I mean, I can understand the logic of having Karlsson up there, because yeah, he's not the most plurif, the most sexiest goal scorer, but at the same time, he puts in the work. So I can kind of see it, but at the same time, I just feel like, I don't know, it just the reward, like the way that some players get shuffled down, like we've seen Kevin Labanc go from the top line to the fourth line in a night.
Yeah, and M. Hackle brings up a good point too, saying Donskoy has more skill.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's exactly what it is. His passing and his playmaking is, I mean, dare I say it, sometimes looks like Joe Thornton-esque, where he, finds a pass out of nowhere. And, even his shot, I can recall a couple of shots that the year the Sharks went to the final where, Donskoy moves his stick, and, just watching it, it seems like he is trying to pull a deke because of how slow he's moving, but then the puck is already off his stick and in the back of the net. And it's like, okay, how did that happen? So
Right.
he has a very, very quick and very, like, very surprising, like, offensive prowess that can catch you if you're not looking. And as successful as he's been on the third line and has elevated the play of Tierney and Bodker, I would love to see him either with Couture, like we said, or even with the Joes, because you and I both know that the Joes are ice cold right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, it seems like the only things that the power play has been okay, and it seems like that's where it has been great. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the power play is anything to write home about, but it seems like if the Joes are touching the score sheet, it's usually on the power play, which isn't being totally efficient either. So,
right.
I mean, it concerns me. I mean, look at this coaching staff has done some things this year that I've liked, and I'm not going to completely just say like, everything Peter DeBoer does is wrong, because look, they got off to a crappy start, and they're starting to put wins together, despite the fact that the Joes have kind of been ice cold. And I feel like the other problem is, when you look at the way that they shuffle people around, but we've also seen guys like Jannik Hansen's been in the press box for how long? You've seen Joel Ward sit out for extended periods of time. So I mean, it's not like it's just the rooks getting picked on here. I mean, there's definitely been veteran guys who've basically, been sent messages, which is why I wouldn't be shocked to see Hansen draw back in at this point, because obviously, they're going to want to see what this time in the box, time in the press box has done to him. I think it's, what Jannik Hansen comes back into the lineup.
And I mean, as underwhelming as Yannick Hansen has been, and he's obviously not doing what we expected him to be doing, I still think,
Right.
and that's why I said he, should get a look with like Carpenter and Goodrow, is I think his speed is a huge asset for the team, and he's kind of fallen into Matt Nieto territory at this point. But
Right.
at the same time, like, not that Carpenter and Goodrow are bad by any stretch, but I mean,
No.
if you can get Yannick Hansen, a speedster, to get the puck to them and kind of spread things out, then we all remember Carpenter's OT winner against Stockton in the playoffs last year. That was a Goodrow and Carpenter play by themselves. Now you put a speedy winger with that, and I really want to see that, and I hope we do get to see that at some point.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, I agree. I'm not disagreeing. It's hard because now you have to also keep into consideration too, like, the Kevin LeBanc going down. Here's another thing that I don't think got brought up that much today, and I think it's an interesting factor you got to consider. How much does that also have to do with the fact that it looks like Paul Martin's coming back into the lineup?
Yeah, that definitely makes an impact for sure. Especially, like, I don't know. I don't think the Sharks were going to stick with 14 forwards the whole year. I mean, even with LeBanc in the AHL, they can still, say they want to keep Goodrow in the lineup. They can put Ryan Carpenter back in, or they can put Yannick Hansen back in, and they'll still have an extra forward, and it allows them to hold on to Joakim Ryan for a little bit longer and see.
Right, because that's the only, if Paul Martin's coming back in the lineup, the only other play is they'd have to send a D-man down. And I don't think they're ready to do that with Vlasic not skating.
Yeah, exactly. And it creates a whole nother set of questions. I mean, Paul Martin comes back. What do you do? I mean, obviously, I think Dylan DeMello goes back to the press box, but then, if you want to keep Joakim Ryan, like, what do you do from there? Does somebody else, like Brendan Dillon go to the press box? I don't think a Tim Heed goes to the press box. So if the Sharks want to keep Joakim Ryan, and at least that's what it appears like, then some serious decisions are going to have to be made.
It's interesting because I think like Joakim Ryan's been so good, like so beyond even like, I mean, we've on this show, we've raved about Joakim Ryan, but even like what he's done this season surpasses my expectations. Like, he's exceeded my expectations for what he would do at the NHL level in his quote unquote rookie year. I mean, yeah, I think it's him. And then that, Burns and Heed both being at the points. I mean, that's been something nice too. And I don't know what they would want to, I don't think they want to screw with that either. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do to the defense once it's healthy. And my guess is that probably one of Heed or Ryan eventually goes back down just because obviously, again, do you want Joakim Ryan or Tim Heed sitting in the press box, or are you going to let DeMello rot in the press box, or are you going to get them reps?
Yeah, exactly. And I think if you're having to choose between the two, I still think you send Joakim Ryan down. As good as he's been, I still think you send him down because he can, like you said, get reps with the Barracuda. He can be on the top pair in all situations and be the guy down there. And it allows the Sharks to keep Tim Heed, who, in my eyes, has helped cure, at least in a small part, the woes of the Sharks power play.
Yeah, no, that's my thoughts too. Like, I really like what Tim Heed's done. He's given them another look because obviously, look, the playbook on Brent Burns is very out there and very apparent. And having Tim Heed out there, I mean, now you have to respect them both. You can't. They're getting the, they're getting to that point now where you can't just cheat on one side to Burns, because if you do, then he's going to burn you. And if you think that you can just stop watching Brent Burns now because Brent Burns hasn't scored any goals yet, well, that'll quickly change if you decide that you're going to put all your attention on Heat now at the point. Like, it's a good problem to have if you're the Sharks.
Yeah, and for how many times last year did, us and Zach and Kevin all insinuate that Heed is like discount Brent Burns, and now they're on the same power play unit together?
I know.
It's just it's just a perfect marriage, is what it is.
Yeah, no, it really, yeah. I mean, I've loved it. I mean, there's a lot to like. Like I said, we talked about this on our end show, is how much that the Sharks don't suck suddenly, and it's great. It's always good when the Sharks do good. It's good, as I've always said. I think it doesn't really get much easier to do that, right? Like that really sums it up. If the Sharks do good, it's good. So I mean, it's good, but it's nice to see that they're having some options. I mean, as much as I don't like Kevin LeBanc down, and I don't like the idea of Timo Meyer going down, but I don't know what else they would have done. Look at you still have to look at the business side realities of it. Do I think a Ryan Carpenter would get claimed? Probably not. Do I think a Barclay Goodrow's getting claimed? Maybe, but probably not. Like, I think they had other options, but if Kevin LeBanc's just going to sit in the press box wasting away, then as much as I don't like it, the Barracuda is probably the best place for him. As much as I think it's coaching issues.
Yeah, exactly. And as we've seen, LeBanc has and can dominate at the AHL level, and a guy like LeBanc, who was very well talked about last year, his apparent NHL-itis that he had, because of course we don't want to insinuate anything, but his apparent NHL-itis, and yes, he's not in the NHL anymore, but if you get him in a position in the AHL where he can dominate and he can be, the focal point for the Barracuda, then his confidence is going to shoot through the roof. And when he does come back to the Sharks, he's going to have all the confidence in the world, and he's going to be feeling a lot better, because I guarantee you, like I said, he was the Sharks' best player through the first 5 games, and how he's played lately, I don't think he's very happy with how things have gone. And I think in the short time since last year, I think we've seen Kevin LeBanc mature a lot, where, maybe he doesn't take this as a demotion. Maybe he takes it as a chance to, better himself and hone his skills and, help him out in the long run, which is ultimately what I think will happen.
And I think something that does need to be said for LeBanc also is that his defensive game has kind of slipped since the start of the season.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't think that's unfair to say. Do I think it's bad enough that he should be AHL worthy? I don't know. In the chat here quick, because we were talking about the CUDA, and then I kind of jumped us all over the place. Do I think that the Barracuda are a playoff team right now? They could be. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't want to. This team's really, really green. And last year it was green with a lot of high end talent for the AHL game. And I want to say just high end talent period, because I think that'd be overselling it a little. But I believe that, I think the Barracuda have potential to be a playoff team. Would I say yes, for sure? It's, they're a playoff team. No, I'm not comfortable there, because just based on the other games that I've watched this year, there's some definite problems. That blue line is really green, and and it's been banged up a little bit too on top of that. So you've already got a thin blue line. It's been banged up. It's hard. It's really hard to see that as a Calder Cup contending defense.
I think if the Barracuda get Joakim Ryan back, and that I think helps. if they can get Joakim Ryan back, if Nick DeSimone can get through whatever it is he's dealing with,
yeah,
and if Rourke Chartier can come back, then I think they'll have a chance, because the roster that they put out tonight, especially the forwards, looked pretty good. You swap out John McCarthy with a Rourke Chartier, it's even better. Now, on that subject, I don't know if you saw Twitter, but apparently Rourke Chartier was seen wearing sunglasses indoors, which tells me that he is nowhere near playing.
Right, and that's unfortunate. Sunglasses indoors. I mean, it could be a heavy night of drinking, but
yeah,
probably a concussion.
Well, and And I assume it's the same one that he got in the playoffs last year.
Right. My understanding is he's never really recovered from that injury, so that's not
Which, yeah, especially with, I mean, yes, he was the third line center for the most of the year, but he's still a huge piece of the team. And I mean, no knock on John McCarthy, but if I had to pick between the two, I'm taking Rourke Chartier.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe maybe yeah, maybe he is just a badass. You're right. Look at I mean, obviously, look at I want Rourke Chartier to have all the time in the world to recover. But it can't be understated how big of a blow that is to the Barracuda. He's an important piece, and he's a guy that could easily slot into that top 6 right now. And I think that he would give them a little more punch. I think that the Barracuda is a little thin down the middle right now, as far as like just players with comfort. No, man, no. Sleepy Chartier is not a douche. He's cool people. I have never met the man, but I'm sure he's cool people. He looks like cool people. I don't know. I want him to get better, obviously, and I don't want him to rush him. So I'm glad that, if he's wearing sunglasses and he's nowhere near the rink, then that's where I want him. Especially if he's just being a douche. But I don't think he's being a douche at all.
And no Rourke Chartier. It creates opportunities for other guys. And I mean, I'm gonna be on this train, bus, whatever, for as long as possible. But
I think we need to have a bus, because I feel like we're gonna end up in court if we go train or drum.
Sure. So okay. I'm gonna be on this. I'm gonna be on this bus
with our bus
for as long as I can. Alex True has been a huge part of this team, and his offensive output has kind of slipped since the Barracuda left for their most recent road trip. But still, he is. I mean, he's a guy that all of us, identified at the prospect scrimmage as being kind of like a Buddy Robinson that plays center. And I mean, so far he's thrived well. And like I said, he was with Balkers and Sandberg tonight, and the three of them controlled the play for a good chunk of the night. So I think, as crappy as it is that Rourke Chartier is dealing with what he's dealing with, I think an injury to him, who's such a vital player, it allows other players to kind of step up and say, kind of like, no, we got this, we're good. And, we've seen that from, like I said, from Alex True, and even, the Barracuda, who lost Carpenter, Goodrow, and Robinson all last year. Here comes Adam Haluka to lead the team in points,
Yeah, so, I agree. I think here's the thing that I think, and I think that Rourke Chartier would obviously address. The thing with the Barracuda right now is you have players that are being forced to play over their heads a little.
Right.
And I think that you have guys that are playing in positions right now because they have to, that are miscast. And I think that a guy like True is one of those people. A guy like Nick DeSimone's another guy. I think Nick DeSimone's a great, he's a good, serviceable middle pair guy. I don't think he's the guy you want to be the guy, though. Now, maybe playing beside Joakim Ryan would change that. I don't know. But he and Bergman, that's just tough. Like I feel like you're asking a lot,
right? And I think
your top pair,
and I think that ultimately is why Joakim Ryan comes down before Tim Heed, because Joakim Ryan can play with a Macy's mannequin and still look good, but Tim Heed needs a particular type of defenseman in order to thrive, which is why I think Ryan would be the one who goes down first if I'm picking one or the other.
Yeah, I think it's hard because it goes back to left, right? Like, and that's the other thing too, because Peter DeBoer is very much big on his lefty righty, which is why I think that Joakim Ryan's probably the guy too, because let's be honest, Vlasic's not coming out of the lineup. Paul Martin probably not coming out of the lineup. Brendan Dillon would be your other lefty, unless I'm smoking something. Dillon's a lefty, right?
Brendan Dillon, yes.
Okay, yes, that's what I thought. I want to make sure I had it right, though. So yeah, I mean, those guys are pretty much stapled into the lineup. So that's another reason I think Joakim Ryan comes out and goes back down at some point. As much as I don't want him to, because I really like Joakim Ryan. Like, I really like what I see. I think it's unfortunate that Paul Martin is still on this team at this point for that, just because I think it's it's unfortunate because Joakim Ryan can do his job.
And how possible do you? Well, a couple things come to mind. Number one, when's the last time the Sharks have had a defenseman who's come in, played 11 games, and made 0 mistakes?
Yeah.
Classic, maybe. But, Joakim Ryan he's making a case to, force one of these guys out here via trade or what have you. But another question, and this is a little more extreme, but, could we see the Sharks go the route of a Blackhawks or a Maple Leafs where, he can't play, he's not healthy, let's just tuck him over here and not worry about him until his contract expires?
I don't think they do that to Paul Martin. I think Peter DeBoer likes Paul Martin. I think it's the second that Paul Martin can go, he's back in the lineup.
Right.
Like I feel like that's the way it is. And look, I'm fine with that. Like I'm not fine with it because honestly, I'd rather Joakim Ryan. But I understand the business side of it, and obviously the business side dictates that Joakim Ryan goes back to the AHL, continues to get all the ice time that he can get, and then and then you go to Paul Martin. Obviously, Brendan Dillon. I think Dillon's been, for the most part, he's been okay this year. I know Dillon's an easy punching bag. He's an easy punching bag. You can say mean things about Brandon Dillon. You can generally score points with the audience. I'm not going to do that today. I just feel like, I like Joakim Ryan better in that position, but let's be honest, no one's taking on that contract for Paul Martin at this point.
No, and I do think that people undervalue Paul Martin, but at the same time, I don't think he has value to another team at this moment in time.
No, I don't think so either. I think look at Vegas has been trying to offload defensemen forever.
Exactly.
That are at least on par. Some of them are at least on par with Paul Martin, and it's bad, and they should feel bad. I don't know anymore. Just want to wrap up on the Barracuda here quick, and then I want to talk about the big trade today. Bergman being back, I thought people bringing back Bergman being back was definitely a plus. Yeah, I mean, look at Bergman; they need help moving out of the zone, and Bergman's a guy that can, he's kind of Bergie for me. Kind of, it was interesting last year that he was paired with Mirko Mueller because I felt like they both sometimes have decision-making issues. And for Hockey Jerks giving us an update in the chat here, and I'm just going to read out what he's writing just quickly. So for the folks listening on their audio devices, maybe their phone, maybe an iPod, I don't know. But whatever you're listening to, hopefully it is subscribed to Teal Tinted Glasses. Barracuda have a record of 4-5 and 1-1 at this point. Right, because stupid shows. All right, 450 winning percentage. They're 7th in the Pacific. Pacific, it seems pretty crammed though, isn't it? I don't think anyone's there's a couple of teams running away with it. And I got to bring up the standings.
Tucson and San Antonio have had pretty good starts to their season, and the same could be said about Stockton. But pretty much anything lower than 3rd place, it's
just a mumble jumble.
It's jump ball.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just didn't have it in front of me. Yeah, so they're in 7th, but I think that can change. I think, again, you look at the injuries that the Barracuda have taken, they could climb back into it. I'm not super concerned about them at this point. I think if you see more efforts like you saw tonight, then good things are going to happen. They just, the problem with the Barracudas, they're going to have to play, they play Stockton 1,800 times.
At least
1,800 times a season, and if they can't, win, and it's at least 7,000 of those 18,000 things, then they're in trouble. It's going to be interesting to see when they play Stockton. I don't have it up in front of me when they play Stockton next, but that's those are games that they're going to definitely have to chip away at their lead with. But all in all, I thought a good night for the Barracuda. I hope that we can see more of this going forward. I think that, as much as I don't like Kevin LeBanc down there, as much as I don't want Timo Meier down there, as much as I don't want Joachim Ryan down there, I mean, obviously, if you see more of these guys entering the lineup, then this team's dynamic changes very quickly and they become a lot more deadly. So we'll see how long Kevin LeBanc is set to stay in with the baby Sharks, and hopefully it isn't long, but if it is, then at least we can enjoy some we should be able to enjoy some better Barracuda hockey than we've seen for the most part this year, and that's not a bad thing from a Barracuda perspective.
Not at all. When when the Barracuda do good, it's good.
Yeah. Any chance LeBanc returns to the NHL on Wednesday? I don't think so. And the first visit with Stockton is on the 6th of December. Is that home or away?
Home.
There you go. At the tank. Go. Be merry. Any chance that LeBanc returns Wednesday? I don't think so. I really don't think that he was sent down to skate in a Barracuda game and then to go back up. I don't see it.
I think if LeBanc was going to be back in the NHL on Wednesday, then he wouldn't have played tonight.
Right. Yeah, they wouldn't have risked injury to him. Because obviously anytime you play, you can be injured, and they wouldn't have risked that if he was a guy that was going to be in the lineup on Wednesday. I don't think that he played tonight.
Right.
That's just my opinion, and Hockey Jerk's opinion, and probably other people's opinions too. So big trade tonight in the NHL. Matt Duchene finally gets traded.
Yeah, seriously.
I know, it's like ridiculous. Let me see. I had this up. I gotta find it again because of course I put it down. Obviously, I gotta find all the details here because there's so much stuff in this trade.
Oh, I got it. You ready?
Okay. Yeah, I'm ready. Here we go.
Alrighty. So it's very complicated. So everybody hold on to your butts.
Okay.
So Ottawa acquires Matt Duchene from Colorado. That's probably the easiest part to understand. And then Ottawa gives Nashville Kyle Turris, and Kyle Turris signs a 6-year, $36 million extension. And then Nashville sends Gerard, who's a defenseman, Kamenev, who's a left winger, and a second in 2018 to the Avalanche.
Right. And
then Ottawa sends the Hamburglar, Andrew Hammond. I believe the first name is Shane Bowers, who Ottawa drafted 28th overall this past year. A third-round pick and a first-round pick. The first-round pick is top 10 protected. So if Ottawa is in the top 10 this year, then the pick defers to 2019, which I think would be hilarious if Ottawa picked at 10 and then in 2019 they picked like third, but Colorado had that pick. I think that'd be hilarious.
That would be hilarious.
But yeah, those are all your particulars. No retained salary or anything otherwise.
Last time a player was traded mid-game, I believe, was Camilleri, wasn't it?
Yep, Michael Camilleri in 2012 went from the Canadiens to the Flames.
That's right. There you go. Yeah, so it's definitely been done in hockey before.
And I don't mean to cut you off, but I think the last time a three-way trade was done, and I could be wrong about this, was I believe in 2007, which saw Marty Havlat go from Chicago to Ottawa. Somebody, I don't know, somehow the Sharks ended up with Mark Bell and Marty Havlat was involved. So there you go.
There you go. Yeah, it was that trade. Yeah, so three-way trade, that's the one thing. It's a good point. I'm glad you pointed that out. Three-way trade has been forever since we've seen a three-way trade, which was interesting. Who do you like this move for the most? Because I like it for Nashville. Nashville's like, if you ask me right now who won the trade, I think Nashville really came out ahead. I know Colorado got a crap ton of stuff. And I really like Samuel Girard. I think that's a really nice pickup for them. But if you look at like who's going to make the biggest impact on their team right now, to me, it's Nashville for sure. Because I think Nashville struggling right now for some offense. I think Kyle Turris fits right in there perfectly. And I think that, I think it kind of takes their pressure off a little bit. It gives them a little more depth at center. I think it takes a little more pressure off Bonino.
Yeah.
I think Bonino might have been forced to play a little over his head. So bringing Kyle Turris in, slots right in on that second line. You can bring Bonino down to the third line. And I think that they're probably the best team to come out of the trade right now. Now, Colorado could win this trade in the long run, depending on how a guy like Samuel Girard, who I'm really, really high on, turns out. And they got all those picks and everything. I feel like for Ottawa, like Matt Duchene, Kyle Turris, it's kind of a lateral move, isn't it?
Well, and if this trade happens, if this trade happens 3 years ago, then I think Ottawa would be the winner, because 3 years ago Matt Duchene was putting up back-to-back 70-point years. Now, I don't think Matt Duchene is unable to do that again. I think in a new environment with better players, I think he will be able to get back to that level of play, which is why, as much as Ottawa did have to give up, I like the trade for Ottawa, because they get a legit center who can score points with or without good players. And Colorado got the nice big package from both teams, but it's draft picks and it's prospects, which are nice, but as we as Sharks fans have seen, are not for sure things.
Right.
And then you look at Nashville, who, yes, they gave up Girard, which I think is the biggest hit that this trade took for them. But I mean, Kamenev, a left winger, you can find left wingers, no problem. Mm-hmm. And a second round draft pick, again, no guarantee that player would be anything good. If they are, well, oh well. Second round picks are the greatest and worst trading asset of all time.
They really are.
And then Kyle Turris, it has been Ottawa's best player for the last 3 years, and you're able to get him in.
I think one Erik Karlsson might have something to say about that.
Right. Best forward. Kyle Turris.
That I will give you.
Kyle Turris has been their best forward in the last 3 or 4 years, and if you get him in at 6 years, $6 million, that's a hell of a bargain. Now, I think Nashville would be beneficial to try and get maybe one more scoring winger.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, like I said, given what they had to give up, the fact that they got Turris extended, I think Nashville is the right now winner, and some argument could be made for Colorado being the down the road winner. But the thing that concerns me is, if Ottawa continues their trend of making the playoffs and being just awful and then missing the playoffs, is Matt Duchene going to want to re-sign in 2019?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about, the talk in Ottawa was that they weren't going to be able to meet Turris's demands. How the hell are they going to meet Matt Duchene's demands come contract time?
Well, exactly. And not only that, if Ottawa is not willing to pay $6 million a year over 6 years to Kyle Turris, then they probably should have never had Kyle Turris to begin with, because he's worth it.
I think so too. You see, that's the thing. I think it was interesting hearing like a lot of the post interviews from the Colorado Avalanche. Like, it was interesting, like how, the theme was like, well, it's, it's nice that we're going to have guys that actually want to be here now.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting. But you know what? At the same time, like, why? I don't blame Matt Duchene at all. If you were being blamed for things that weren't your fault, why would you want to be there?
No. And that's, I think there's an element of fairness to that too. I mean, it just goes to show that obviously, like, that was not a great locker room situation, probably maybe a little bit worse than, probably thought so. And I feel like, so hopefully he goes to Ottawa, a nice change of environment, and, hopefully things work out for him there, because I think that, not that I'm trying to say like, Matt Duchene was the root of all the problems in Colorado, because God knows he wasn't. But I mean, obviously that situation had played out way longer than it should have. And it's interesting in the chat here, quick, Vince G saying Nashville fans complaining about losing Girard would be rioting if Poile gave up Ekholm. And I agree. Here's the thing about Samuel Girard. Like, here's the thing with Nashville, though, is like, yeah, Nashville is in a good position because they can afford to give up, a defenseman. Like we've seen them give up Seth Jones. Now you've seen them give up Samuel Girard. But the thing is, though, is that once, help me out here, Jerk. What's his name? He's hurt and he's awesome.
Ryan Ellis.
Yes, Ryan Ellis. Once Ryan Ellis comes back, everything like your top four is so locked down. Like, I mean, it's nice to have, Samuel Girard trotting on your bottom pair, but at some point, I mean, someone's going to be the odd man out there.
Well, and not only
becomes what we think he's going to be.
Exactly. And, everybody talked about how good that decor was last year. I think them acquiring Alexei Emelin from Vegas, I think that made their decor even better, And
I'm not a huge Emelin guy, but I mean, considering the injury things going, but Nashville already signed Turris. He's still ended.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Kyle Turris signed the contract while he was doing his interviews.
Yeah.
Like that extension came out really quick.
Yeah, he already signed an extension that will see him staying in Nashville for the next 6 years.
Which again,
$6 million, I think, per.
Yeah, 6 years, $6 million a year, which is, like I said, and I think it's an excellent bargain when you consider that Ryan Johansson, I believe, is making what, 10 million?
8
million, which, I mean, 8 million is not totally out of the norm, but again, Ryan Johansson's kind of had a slow start to the year.
Mm-hmm.
So it allows you to have that flexibility. But like I said, I still would like to see Nashville pick up another winger, whether they make a play, whether they make a play to get the real deal James Neal back or somebody else. I just think that eventually they're going to run into scoring problems like they did last year. And Rob Iman says, do the Rangers dangle Chris Kreider if they become sellers? Absolutely they do. That team has been the minute the Rangers traded Derek Brassard 2 summers ago, the retool, rebuild, reset, refresh, whatever you want to call it, was started.
You know what I do like though for the Senators out of this whole thing?
What's that?
Is that Thomas Chabot remains an Ottawa Senator.
Yeah, exactly. I remember.
Sorry, I just want to say quick because when you look at say losing like Samuel Girard, who's also a really really highly touted defensive prospect, but the thing is when you're Nashville, you can afford to send away defensive prospects because A, you have them in abundance, and B, your decor is pretty solid, whereas Ottawa not so much.
Right, and I remember when Duchesne was first linked to Ottawa back in February. I remember thinking to myself, and I even tweeted it out. You can go back and find it. I said, "There's no way Duchesne to Ottawa doesn't get done if Ottawa doesn't give up either Chabot or Logan Brown." And here we are, 9 months later, and they didn't have to give up either of them.
Yeah, no, I mean, from that respect, I like it for Ottawa. I don't. Again, for what they gave up, I think Duchesne and Turris are just very very comparable players in my opinion.
And I think you're right in that respect. They have averaged about the same amount of points. They are both very flexible players in that they've played center and wing in their careers. And I think the hope, I think with Kyle Turris, I think we've seen all that we can see from Kyle Turris, which, being a 60 to 70 point guy is not awful by any stretch. But I think the Senators really hope that, if you get Duchesne with some, with a Hoffman or a Stone or somebody like that, I think the hope is that you can get Duchesne back to where he was scoring 70 to 80 points a season. And, I've always really liked Matt Duchesne, and especially with Matt Duchene's kind of a shooter, but even with Stone, who's a shooter, or Mike Hoffman, who is a shooter and a pretty good passer as well. I think if Duchesne plays with either of those guys, I think he'll be a very effective player.
Oh, I think so too. I don't cite is, you know what I mean? That's for me, this whole thing, it just kind of makes me scratch my head a little bit because it's where's the, I guess you couldn't trade them straight up. So I don't know. It wouldn't make sense for Colorado to take back Turris. So obviously you need the third party there. It's just, it doesn't make a lot of sense, from Ottawa for giving up Turris. And I feel like they're paying more money now. I think another nice thing for them was I think that the Andrew Hammond money was something that they wanted to get out from under.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was important a little bit too. But I don't know. It doesn't make sense. I've lost my
Sleepy Mofo says that Matt Nieto caught Duchesne leaving because he was trying to sneak out of there without saying bye. Is that actually true?
I don't know.
Sleepy Mofo? Because if it is, that kind of shows you the severity of the situation. No.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was out of there. Like he left. Like he was just like, I'm out. See you later, guys. Like he's like they showed him like taking his bags out like in the basically in the intermission. Like he couldn't get out of there fast enough. It seemed like.
Christine says there's video of it. Somebody's gonna have to tweet me that video. I want to check it out.
We'll have to tweet that out. All right, we're almost at an hour here, so I don't want to get. I want to go to bed because I have to get up early tomorrow, early-ish, make some lunches, father stuff. So I guess anything else that we need to cover? I feel like we've done pretty good. And Thursday we can kill a bunch of stuff, or whatever day it is we podcast next. I don't know when the Sharks play. So
right.
Oh, there'll be a guy in blue, and that is Matt Nieto. I don't need to know. I'd know Matt Nieto if I saw Matt Nieto. I'd also know he's from Long Beach.
He is?
That's the important. Yes, he's from Long Beach. I don't know if you're aware of this.
I had no idea.
This is the kind of stuff that we break on this show, people. If you were not watching this show because it was past your bedtime, you missed the fact that Matt Nieto is from Long Beach. Things that you would never find out if you didn't watch that show. So, yeah, it's good. All right, we should probably get out of here. Final thoughts, Mr. Jerk.
Final thought. Well, I'm happy that Matt Duchesne was traded because, like I said, I like Matt Duchesne. I think he's a good player. I want to see him in a different environment and see if he can get back to being a elite level player that he was at one point. You can follow me on Twitter at hockey_jerk. TikTok, people, we have 4 days in the Will Elaine Vigneault be fired poll. So be sure to check that out. I'm
going to be really angry if he's not fired by the time we record our next show.
Last I checked, it was at 20 votes, which is like the most I've ever had for a poll. So it's gonna be a fun week here. I'm excited to see how things happen.
Well, yeah, I'm getting mad if he's not fired because then the streak's over and I'll be upset.
Yeah, how many coaches have we gotten fired? 4. We've gotten 4 coaches fired. The streak needs to continue.
That's right. So, New York Rangers, get it done. It's terrible. We're terrible. I feel bad for anyone who's not a Sharks fan, to be completely honest. They don't know what they're missing. They could listen to us, and I think that alone is a good reason to be a Sharks fan. Your Wednesday should be stressful. Who are they playing Wednesday?
Tampa Bay.
Oh man, that's gonna be a gong show. All right. Note to self: Tampa Bay Wednesday night. Do something else. All right. No,
will that be Wednesday night rivalry?
Probably is the second half, the doubleheader, isn't it?
I would not be surprised.
Damn it. Well, hopefully I have to work that morning. Yeah, someone tweet this video out so we can all retweet it 100,000 times and make it go TTG5 viral. My final thoughts on the night. Obviously, thanks for coming on to watch us a little later than we normally go on. We want to talk about obviously we want to talk about the Barracuda game a little bit, but I didn't want to talk about the Barracuda by myself. Come on now. So I don't like doing shows by myself because I ramble like this, except it's an hour of this and no one wants this. Other final thoughts are we'll be back Thursday then. If the Sharks are not playing, then we will definitely be back on Thursday. And it will be epic as always. So for that Thursday show, though, obviously the thing that you want to do is make sure you get your questions in so that we can add to whatever all the awesome things that happen. Maybe this was it for the week. We blew it on a Sunday. We just, Matt Duchesne is going to be the big news of the week, and we killed it on Sunday night and left ourselves nothing for Thursday. In that case, you need to get us your questions in. Make sure you to subscribe. Make sure if you have friends that like podcasts and they like the Sharks, or maybe they don't even like the Sharks, maybe they just like hockey and they want to hear a couple of blowhards talking about their team. Those blowhards could be us. Make it happen, people. Get the subscriptions out there. Get the word out. Aside from that, though, guys, have a great night. Thanks for waiting for us to come on. It means a lot to us, as always. And good night. Have a good one. Bye.